You remember Skyrim, that game that you've probably put hundreds of hours into across multiple different platforms, but you haven't thought about it in a couple of years. Yeah, well, that's the game we're tackling today. But more specifically, we're going to be tackling a mod for it that only came out last week. Now, modding and Skyrim is nothing new. It happens all the time, and the modding community is probably one of the most active out there in video games, but it's not every day that a mod actually makes headlines. I mean, think about it. What was the last Skyrim mod that you actually read about that was the next big thing? Well, I want to say that this is probably it. Now, the mod that we're talking about is called Shadow of Skyrim, and it was made by a modder named Syclonix, and it is utterly fantastic. What it aims to do is bring the Nemesis system from the Shadow of Mordor series into Skyrim. And if you're unfamiliar with how the Nemesis system works, I'll try and give you a quick rundown for it. Essentially, if an enemy was to kill you in Shadow of Mordor, then instead of just reloading from the last save, you just respawn. However, everyone in the world knows that that has now happened. The enemy that killed you has gone from some faceless grunt to having a name, a title, a list of fears, a list of strengths, and potentially become stronger because they've been able to best you. You're going to keep running into that enemy over the course of your game and trying to get your revenge while they're trying to continue one-upping you. It's a really dynamic system that aims to create even more immersion and personality within the world. So there are a lot of different layers and a lot of different elements that go on top of that, but that's really the core of the actual system. And that is the core that's been brought across to Skyrim. So if we have a look at the mod page just on the Nexus mods website, it goes through in a lot of detail how it all works. And there's even more so in the game, which I'm about to jump into, and I'll show you exactly how it works there. So this mod is all about immersion. There's a lot of really cool things that it does, but it's all in service of making you more immersed in the story. And I think outside of the actual Nemesises that you come up against, I think the biggest thing for immersion is actually the respawning mechanic, which is the second half to this mod, as well as enemies who defeat you getting unique names, increased stats, buffs, you getting debuffed, having your nemesis be able to take your gear and actually use that against you in the future. All of that stuff is very, very cool. But the coolest thing is that it encourages exploration by respawning the player to a new situational or random location upon defeat. And like in the example there, you might respawn in a vampire lair because breaks many shields in from the flavor text is a vampire. Now, this sounds like a little thing that might be a bit of an annoyance, but because you also have to consider that you're going to be potentially losing your gear, you're going to be starting with less health, they're going to be buffed, you're going to be debuffed, it actually makes this quite a tense experience. And you can't just die again and reload at the last save, because if you die again, well then they get stronger, or the new enemy that kills you will get stronger. It is a really, really cool system, and I think the thing that kind of it does and stands out is this point here. It provides a continuous gameplay experience without saving and reloading. So you can go through an entire playthrough of Skyrim and really feel like the hero. You were never killed. This was all just part of your journey, and that will impact you in different ways. Now, let's jump into the game and take a look at how that all actually works. So if you already have mods installed, it looks like depending on the mods and depending on if you're starting a new game, it should just work. One of the good things about this one is that it is also designed to work in any existing saves as well. As long as you have it towards the bottom of your load order, you should just be able to whack it in, boot it up and get going. So this mod is going to give you a ton of control over exactly how you want to set it up to play the game. There's kind of three main areas that you're going to be messing around with, and that's in the Nemesises, the defeat, and the respawn. When it comes to the actual Nemesises themselves, you can enable or disable that system. So for example, if you wanted to just use it for respawning or other things, then you could do that without using the Nemesis system if you really wanted to. Now you can exclude having enemies that are a much higher level than yours becoming a Nemesis. So if you don't want it to be unfairly challenging, you can turn that off and you can have it disabled completely if you want. From there, when an enemy actually defeats you, it's going to get a bunch of different bonuses. So here you can set exactly where you want those stat boosts to come in at. By default, they're going to get a boost in their health, their stamina, and magic, all by 20%. But then if you want to reduce that, if you want to increase it, then that is totally within your control to do. Buffs and debuffs. So what's going to happen is that each time a Nemesis defeats you, then they're going to be given one special buff. You're also going to be getting a player debuff as well. You can have multiple debuffs at a time as well. So up to 5 buffs or debuffs at any one time. The way to remove these debuffs is by actually avenging yourself. So going and defeating that Nemesis. By extension of that, you also can get reward buffs. So what the reward at or above is referring to is the level of the Nemesis that you have to defeat to be able to get that buff. So for example, you defeat a Nemesis that is 90% of your level or more, you'll actually be rewarded for that. Again, you can change this. So like it says here, if you want to set it at 101%, that means that you'll only get a buff for defeating enemies at a higher level. Then that is totally up to you as well. And another really nice touch is it's going to increase the physical size of the enemy that kills you. So if it's an NPC, they'll increase by 10% in size. If it's a creature, they'll increase by 20%. But again, if you toggle it, you can go through and you can change it anywhere to where it's going to suit you best. Then you have defeat, and this is specifically referring to what's going to happen when you die. So a lot of this is to do with the animations of how you die, how long it's going to take, whether you're allowed to be revived or not. So if you are playing with companions or you have followers, and that's either in-game or different mods that will allow that, then what can happen is you may be revived by your followers after battle if they defeat your enemies. So you can't be revived by creature followers or by summons, but any of those actual NPCs in the game, then that is fair game as well. So with that, you'll be able to set the length of time that will be valid for. You're also going to be, I guess, punished a little bit more for death. The big thing is that you're going to be respawning instead of dying and reloading a previous save, meaning the game's going to continue going, and there are going to be consequences for that now. It'll allow your Nemesis to be able to take and use items. If you get defeated by traps or falling or something that's just not an enemy, then you can still drop items or gold if you have this turned on. As far as what that chance is, you can change those percentages of how likely it is to happen upon defeat as well. And then respawn. So out of this whole mod, outside of the Nemesis system, it's the respawn feature that is really exciting here as well. Because like I mentioned, when you die in Skyrim, it's just a matter of reloading your last save. But here, what it is the idea that you are constantly surviving. It's not that you're dying. That's not much of a hero's journey, right? So every time that you're defeated, you're not actually killed. So what will happen is you're going to respawn now. And that works in a couple of different ways. And rather than just respawning at your last known location, which would essentially just be like reloading a save anyway, there's the option to be able to revive in situational locations. So what it means by situational locations is you're going to wake up depending on how you were defeated. Like you can see here in the events, it might be that your guards have arrested you and they've taken you to the nearest prison upon defeat. It might just be that guards might just steal some of your items and leave you for dead. There's also the option to be able to be respawned at a random location. Where possible, it will still be within the same hold, but this is going to work in conjunction with all of the different types, which I should mention, if you don't want it to respawn you at situational locations, you can have it respawn you to your last bed or to just the last location in general. Now, the other thing as well is there will be a chance for the random location being hostile. There's going to be a difference to your starting health. You're not going to come back at full health, and also a maximum amount of time that is actually going to pass as well. I think that what we're going to try and do is I want to see how it works with, I mean, we're not going to be able to get bandits. Okay, let's start off with a skeever. Lowly entry. This is gonna take a while, isn't it? Where are you? There you are. Come on, finish your job. Oh, now the combat music's kicking in. I can't continue fighting. Yeah, I can't continue fighting, unfortunately. So what happens? Weakened, I stumbled into an unfamiliar area. Something moves in the corner of my vision and my heart starts to race. I shouldn't linger here. I am struck with an unsettling pang of fear as I grasp my deep wounds. It is clear that my encounter with the nocturnal skeever proved almost fatal. And now I have a fear of animals. That is very cool. And yeah, it makes sense. I'm afraid of animals. Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay, I'm really not in a good space. Ooh, okay, well, you know what? I was planning on dying twice because we really gotta put this mod through its paces. Let's see where we end up. Let's see what I'm afraid of now, and who that was that just killed me. I've been wandering for several hours searching for a familiar sight when I finally come across a place to rest. I determined to hunt down the Spider King skeleton of bone-strewn crest and mount its ugly head on my wall. Debuff inflicted. Trembling hands. I shouldn't be in here. Yes, return to the place of your last defeat. Okay, so inventory wise, I've lost all my stuff. I still have a steel sword, which I should have thought to check before trying to go in all fisticuffs with old mate. I have no armor, so that's definitely something that we need to fix. This could work really well with the survival mod. It could work really well with the survival mod because especially if you can't fast travel, actually having to retrace your steps back to where you went.
Committed crimes against Skyrim and her people. What say you in your defense?
Oh Jesus! So I immediately got arrested. That's a weird thing, very very small thing. But hey, because I haven't stolen anything, no harm done. They didn't take my single lonely arrow, which is pretty cool because I need a leg up. He was booking it. So let's go back to Lost Knife hideout and see if we can find, what was it, the Nocturnal Skeever. Retrace steps to where you nearly died around Lost Knife hideout in East March Hold. So what's happening to us at the moment? Well, we can resist frost because we're a Nord. Let's go Nords. So your attacks are less effective against animals because of the fear of animals. And your hands won't stop shaking. You may inadvertently drop your weapon in the heat of battle, which is not ideal. Oh, okay, here we go. And here's my backpack. Here's all my stuff. Let's take it all. And let's, you know, now that we're not playing around anymore, let's put our things back on. There we go. Okay. But this skeever could be anywhere. Oh, what's this? Have I found him? Nocturnal Skeever. He has gotten bigger. How much damage is he doing now? Okay, he is doing a bit more. Let's put this to bed and see what happens. Hey, there we go. Nocturnal Skeever has been defeated. I've gained new insight from defeating the Nocturnal Skeever. Buff acquired, toughness, and debuff removed, fear of animals. Now, if we have a look at our buff, you're hard to take down. You have an additional 20 health. And as far as I'm aware, these look like they're permanent buffs. Okay, so here's the backpack because this is where I died. Yeah, let's take all of that. Thank you very much. Spider. I've been poisoned. Amazing. I wonder if his buff has something to do with spiders, because okay, one skeleton down, but I will. Oh, okay, and I dropped my sword. Ooh, okay, pause, time out. Potions. Oi, Bushka. There he goes. Oh, but there's a wolf. Crikey, okay. Well, I dropped my sword again, so clearly not out of the woods. Does combat have to be over for me to be able to fight? Yes, combat has to be over. Okay. Gain new insight from defeating the Spider King skeleton. So, the Trembling Hands debuff is removed. Toxin resistance has been acquired. Very cool. Like I said at the start, this mod is going to be a game changer for how you actually play the game. I think that this mod would pair really, really well with something like the survival mode where you can't fast travel. One of the flaws of actually respawning in new locations is that the way that the game works is you automatically register a new location as discovered as soon as you step foot in it, meaning that if you die, it's not very difficult to just fast travel back to the area that you were in before. With survival mode though, without being able to fast travel and also having to keep in mind your food, your sleep, your water, your warmth, all of those sorts of elements as well, it makes this much more difficult. It means that if you wake up in a random location with no clothes and no weapons and no money, then then you kind of have to think about how you would handle that in a different situation. Does that mean that you would try and loot the area that you're in and steal a bunch of stuff if you're in a town? Does that mean that you would try and go up against the enemies that are around you, but without your weapons, and risk dying again and getting another debuff and having another nemesis to deal with? There's a lot of other considerations that have to be made with this, and I think that's kind of what makes this mod so fantastic. With that said, there are still improvements that I would like to see be made across the board. I think for starters, being able to see what the enemy's buffs are, similar to how you can see your debuffs, would be quite cool. And the other thing would be, if you respawn in an area, having it be an area where you're not going to get arrested immediately. But those are all very minor gripes, and the modder Syclonix has said that they're going to be working on a lot of other updates to go to this in the future. Now, I guess it is worth calling out, Syclonix has even made a note on the mod page itself that this is just a nod to those games and to the system. It's not supposed to be an actual Shadow of War mod. This has its own unique gameplay systems, like Nemesis is being able to take and use your gear, and even just dropping your gear and having to recollect it. I think for me, that is a huge part of what this mod does, is leaving you feeling kind of stranded and in a bit of an uncomfortable situation. Huge shout out to Syclonix. This is an incredible mod, and I can't wait to see where it goes in the future. Not only would I say jump onto Nexus mods and give it a like to support it, but Syclonix also does have a Patreon page as well, which I will link in the description. Anyone that is wanting to say thank you or contribute to his work, you can jump on there and be able to support him directly. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know if you're interested in more of this sort of content, but until next time, let's go. I'm not gonna lie, daughter has her brain fried. My lady Papa's